Morning, dog mamas. I know many of you are looking to try and feed your dogs better, and you often wonder about all the mass amount of information that's flying around out there, and just trying to figure it all out. So I wanted to share a little bit today about feeding your dogs vegetables and maybe some fruits, and whether we should or we shouldn't. I know there are a lot of purists in the raw feeding community who think it should be prey animal meat and carcass, or even what they call fur and feathers only. And a lot of people argue against feeding vegetables and fruits to our dogs. The general argument is that in our dog's ancestral diet, that they would not be eating fruits and vegetables. They would eat prey only, meat only. And I think we have to take a little closer look at that. And by no means am I an authoritative expert on all things science, right? It's science. I understand some things, but I am not a scientist. But I think we have to look at this from an overall point of view, and if we only ever look in one lane, that's all we'll ever see. But even if we think about like the prey model diet, what's in the belly of the prey, right? Bunnies eat carrots. Bunnies eat greens, squirrels eat nuts, and all of that. So if our dog were living an ancestral diet, wouldn't they by default be getting some of the content of whatever's in the belly of the prey? Right? I also know that in my studies, there's a lot of questioning and a lot of analysis or research on how do our dogs stay safe? How do they know what they can eat and what might be dangerous? Think in terms of mushrooms, berries, things of that nature. And I heard it said once in a book that I was reading, and honestly right now I don't even remember which one, but that the way a wolf pup or a dog, for example, would have learned in ancestral times what was safe to eat is that their seniors, right, the elders of the pack, so to speak, would have taught them that as they went through their days, it's like the elders would be teaching them about plant life and what plants were safe to eat or what were not. There's also a very recent article that I was reading about this study of people watching wolves in the wild and finding out that they are eating lots of blueberries. And that's a surprise to many. The fact that, these animals are eating blueberries in such large quantities at certain times of the season, when blueberries are in season, obviously, and what that might be doing for them and why they're eating it. Some question whether they're eating it because there's less meat available to them, opportunistic eating, but certainly we know that there are benefits to adding plant matter to our dog's diet. We also know, and I can just, in my own backyard, there's a plant out there that my dogs go chew on all the time. They like it. We also see dogs eating the nice spring grasses from time in the spring, right? And why are they doing that? A lot of people will tell you that the dog is eating grass because he's sick and needs to make himself throw up. That is not 100% the case. It's not even almost always the case, right? It's just in many cases they like the fresh greens And in some cases, they're looking for minerals, right? They're looking for nutrient out of those fresh grasses that their body is craving, needs, and may be deficient in some of the kibble-based diets. So I have come to believe over the years that adding vegetables to our dog's diet can be an extremely beneficial thing. It should not be the majority of their diet. Our dogs should not be vegan. They should not be vegetarians, right? The majority of our dog's diet needs to come from animal protein and animal contents, right? About 80% of their diet needs to be made up of animal materials. But we can certainly start to add some supplementation through veggies and fruits and know that we are getting added vitamins, minerals, and nutrient from those sources in a non-synthetic, whole food way, in a healthy way. So when people start looking at having to feel like they need to medicate their dog for some things or supplement for nutrition in some area that seems to be deficient, either as the dog's body is not manufacturing what it needs to itself from the nutrient that we're getting, or the dog's body may be aging, or the dog's body may be unwell in some way, and we find a need to supplement or add something to the diet, food, whole food sources should be our first go-to. Again, we know that vitamins, minerals, and just nutrient in general can be achieved in the dog's body by taking in some of this plant-based material, vegetables and fruits, right? When we're going to feed those, that would be the first thing that I added to a kibble diet. Now, I know many of you have not yet made the leap into either a raw diet or a home prepared diet of fresh whole foods. Some of you are afraid to do so. You don't understand it. You don't think you know how. And many of you are going to think you can't afford it. And I think there are many things that we can do to help you change your thoughts on that and start to make even baby step changes. Especially if you're still feeding kibble, one of the first add-ons I would choose to make would be an increase of vegetables. Fresh leafy greens or cruciferous vegetables, for example, that have been lightly steamed, whirred through the food processor, and added in a small amount to your dog's bowl. That's adding vitamins and minerals without adding a ton of other ingredients or nutritional components that may begin to offset the balance of overall nutrition. Now, we're never going to have a 100% balanced bowl. You don't eat a 100% balanced diet each day, perhaps, or even over the course of your week. If you are rotating your fruits and veggies and foods around, then you as a human are coming closer to a better balanced diet. When we look at a food like the Volhard diet, we know that that is nutritionally balanced and very healthy overall. So we don't have to do a lot of modification. In fact, we shouldn't do a lot of modification. But if we're talking about coming into adding a little bonus to the bowl, adding some vegetables to a kibble-based diet has been shown to significantly, some argue as much as 70%, increase, or let me rephrase that, by as much as 70% decrease the risk of some diseases. That's pretty hefty, right? So start putting a little broccoli or a little cauliflower kale, spinach, things of that nature that may be even left over from your food, right? Take the broccoli, take the stalk, take a couple of little buds off the top, steam it, whir it through the food processor, and give to your dog on a periodic basis. Some people do it every day. That's not going to start shifting the balance of something like adding meat. So a lot of people fall into this trap of saying, well, I'm going to go raw, so I'm just going to give my dog some raw hamburger, or I'm going to give my dog some chicken, or I'm going to give my dog some fish, right? One of my family members used to stop and get their dog a piece of grilled chicken at a little market every single day, and that was all the dog ate. The dog loved it, but he was missing a ton of nutritional components, fat and calcium, to name two big ones, right? So when you say, I can't go completely raw, but I want to start giving my dog some raw food, because that's the buzzword, you need to understand a little bit more about it. If you just start putting meat into a kibble bowl, for example, that is lean, meaning very low or little fat, and without the bone that comes with that muscle meat, we are really starting to potentially create a deficiency over time. So meat contains the phosphorus component of what you will hear called a calcium to phosphorus ratio, or phosphorus to calcium ratio, right? And if you're just adding the meat and the meat and the meat and the meat without some calcium and without some fat, over time we could have some serious deficiencies or imbalances in the dog's body. So adding some veggies is the first easy way to do that. If you then wanted to add in sort of the next step to getting some nutrient in your dog's bowl, it might be adding an egg, a whole egg, right? Shell and all, membrane and all. And then start looking at how can you add some meat. Certainly a little piece of steak or a little piece of hamburger or a piece of turkey or whatever that you want to share to your dog as a treat is no big deal. It's when you start adding it to the bowl regularly as a significant component of their overall diet, a significant percentage of their overall diet. So veggies are easy to add. Fruits are easy to add. Fruits, if you start looking at things like blueberries or cranberries, for example, they can start adding some really healthy antioxidant support. When we move into some of the essential oil side of things and we start talking about the red drink that everybody loves and my dogs love, it's got wolfberry in it, something that many of you may not have heard of, but certainly extremely beneficial, very high on the scale of antioxidant support. And our dogs need that, right? Especially if you are feeding these kibble-based diets and continuing to vaccine and continuing to live in an environment in which you're spraying pesticides in the yard, or your neighbors are, or cleaning with some of the harsher chemicals, using dryer sheets or cosmetics that have some of these harsh chemicals in them. Your dog and you need antioxidant support. Where do we get probiotics from? We get probiotics a lot of times from fermented vegetables, right? Fermented sauerkraut or fermented broccoli, for example. And I'm going to show you how later in the week to do that. But your dog needs these things, we need these things, and I want to start helping you understand how to help your dog's nutritional intake become upgraded. Whether or not you can shift into a diet like the Volhard diet, or whether you're prepared to start making your own homemade food, there are a number of things that you can do. So really step back and rethink whether or not you fall into this, hey, they got to eat meat only. But what does that mean? What would they really do? And what are the studies now showing us, like with the wolves, or what would be in the belly of the prey, and how we can help our dogs get better nutrition with some simple and affordable changes that we could make in their diet, and perhaps instead of some of the supplementation that we're using. Let me know if you have questions and we'll be talking more.